On behalf of Administration of Faculty of Economics and Management of University of Latvia, we are greatly honored and pleased to welcome you all to our annual International Scientific Conference, New Challenges of Economics and Business Development 2014. As previous years, this conference is organized in cooperation with our good friends, Latvian European Community Studies Association, Institute Sedemis Pleteni, Econometrists Association of Latvia, Latvian Information and Communication Technology Association, Association of Statisticians of Latvia, and Baltic Sea Region Universities Network. The aim of the conference is still the same, to discuss results of scientific research in economic and management issues and establish new contacts and develop research cooperation. With a large number of participants, I hope this conference will be an interesting event for everybody. But this year our conference is special because we have invited two very famous keynote speakers. And so it means that we changed our conference program template, and our conference has two plenary sessions, one today and second tomorrow in the morning. So we start our conference with a plenary session and presentation of Dr. Leitner from Austria, and tomorrow you have possibility to hear Professor Nagasawa from Japan. But at first I give the floor to main organizer of our conference, Vice Dean of Science, Professor Gineta Dimante, for saying some words. Please.
Hello, dear participants. I'm very happy and glad to see you all here. I think we have done a great job, all of us. You are preparing your abstracts and papers and presentations, and we're organizing this conference. And this year we have a record number of countries which participate in our conference. There are around 120 participants from 16 countries. Austria, China, Denmark, Estonia, France, Georgia, Germany, Lithuania, Malta, Poland, Romania, Russia, Switzerland, Ukraine, United Kingdom, and of course Latvia. So you are very welcome here in sunny Riga, and I hope you will enjoy conference and also European Union capital of culture, Riga, this year. So I wish you very successful, fruitful work in the conference, new contacts for collaboration in research and also academic projects, and maybe new friendships also during this conference. And now let me introduce our first plenary session speaker, Dr. Karl-Heinz Leitner from Austrian Institute of Technology. Dr. Karl-Heinz Leitner is senior scientist at the Austrian Institute of Technology, and he was a visiting research scholar at the Copenhagen Business School and teaches innovation management at the Technical University of Vienna. His main research interests cover changing research and development and innovation processes, strategic management, research policy, and the evaluation of intellectual capital. Dr. Leitner conducted research and consultancy projects funded by companies, research organizations, ministries, and the European Commission. He was coordinator also of 7th framework program funded project, Foresight in Innovations. And today he will introduce his opinion on how we will innovate in the future. Please, Dr. Leitner, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon also, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here in the cultural capital of Europe. today already a bit of time in Riga. And it's really also a thank you for inviting me to have here the opportunity to talk about the future of innovation. So we will make a forward look to the future, how we, I mean economy, companies, but also society, how these innovation processes will change. And before we'll start, I will just briefly talk a few sentences about our organization. I'm from Vienna, and I'm working in the Austrian Institute of Technology, which is the Austrian largest applied research organization with different kinds of sites, amongst others in Cybersdorf. There we used to have also a nuclear reactor, but we have also other offices, for instance, here in Vienna. And we are run as a public-private partnership model. So the majority is owned by the Ministry of Innovation, Transport and Technology, and the other part is by the industry. And we are developing new technologies in cooperation with the Austrian industries. But of course also we are doing a lot of projects, amongst others for the European Commission, but also for national and international companies. And we have 5 departments, so energy, mobility, safety and security, health and environment. So they are more developing the technologies. So these are the researchers, the scientists, national scientists. And then there's one department, that's why I'm working, that's the so-called Innovation Systems Department. And we are more mainly social and economics, and we are dealing more with the organizational aspects of research and development of the process, of the innovation process. So we are a department of about 50 employees, and we are doing a lot of projects also concerning innovation research. So how is the innovation process changing? How can we support innovation? So our main target and customers is also the policy. So both on the national level, we are doing a lot of projects for the European, for the national ministries, but also for the European Commission. And you see also here a bit, this is our network. So this is our collaboration network within our organization, external to our organization. So we always try also to map how we are collaborating. And we have 2 business units. One is Research, Technology and Innovation Policy. There I'm heading a group dealing with innovation studies, and we have also another group who is studying more the socio-economic implementation and aspects of technological development. So this is our group. And as I have said, of course, from an economic point of view, we are doing a lot of analysis also of R&D investment, for instance. We are analyzing the community innovation survey. But in order to develop new strategies, both for the companies, but also for the policies, for the ministry, to support innovation. And as we all know, innovation becomes more and more important for the competitiveness of companies, of regions, of cities, of nations. Of course, I think also the more and the better we have understand the changing nature of the innovation process. And this was, if you so like, the root of this project I'm going to introduce, and I'm going mainly to talk about. This was the so-called INFU Project or Innovation Futures Project. So this was a project I have coordinated. It was funded by the 7th Framework Program, by the so-called Blue Sky Research Call, so where we had really the opportunity to define our own research agenda. And we were 4 partners, so AIT, Fraunhofer Institute in Karlsruhe, a Belgian company, SDS, Z-Punkt, the Foresight company. So over three years, we asked ourselves what could be the future of innovation. And some of you have also innovation economics background. So who defined or who made was the most, or first, let's say, the father of innovation economics, or who defined that innovation is very important for structural change and economic development? It was an Austrian, by the way. Who was it? Who? Joseph Alois Schumpeter. Schumpeter. So almost 100 years ago, exactly it was more than 100 years, 1911, he developed his first book, a very important book, The Theory of Economic Development. And there he said, who promotes and who is the main engine for economic development, he said, it's the entrepreneur and it's innovation. And he defined innovation. So this was the early Schumpeter. In the late Schumpeter then he said, okay, innovation is done mainly by large companies in the R&D labs. So this process has changed. If you see, this is the ideal picture. Either on the one hand it's either a single entrepreneur, or on the other hand it's the R&D lab. And now in the last years, last 15 years, what we observe, of course, also is an opening up, a more network process of innovation. So now, as you could say, everyone can innovate at every place at any time. So this is this new design and changing nature of innovation, what we have investigated, and there are some terms like, or in the academic literature it's called open innovation, for instance, user innovation, design innovation, social innovation. So these are all new upcoming trends, and companies are following such strategies. And the question was for us, so what will be really the future, how will we innovate in the future? And so there's really little systematic exploration. I mean, there are a lot of trends, but the question is what are the impacts, what are the drawbacks, what are the possible features of all of these innovation models. So we were really interested in how the process of innovating is changing. So who is innovating and how the process is changing? Does it happen rather in the R&D lab, or is it happens innovation probably also within your private room? So when you're seeing open source software development. And what we also gained, we gained also a rather broad understanding of innovation. So we experienced also that innovation, the concept and understanding of innovation, that we also need a broader perspective. So what is innovation today? We say innovation is really the creation of new products, processes, technologies, services that are accepted by markets, governments and society. So it's not only the traditional product innovation, the technological innovation, but also that innovation becomes more and more important. So this was, if you so like, the main question of this research project, of the Innovation Futures project. And how we address this question, Professor Dimante said it, we apply the so-called Foresight methodology. What is Foresight? Foresight is a methodology to perform more forward-looking perspective. So with a time horizon of, let's say, 10 to 15 years. So the question was really, how can we expect and how can we see also how the future will develop concerning innovation? And one of the founders of this Foresight terminology was Ben Martin from the Brew, who defined Foresight is really a task or a methodology to identify the areas for strategic research and emerging generic technologies. So the roots are really to define what are the promising technologies. But of course you can use this Foresight methodology not only for answering the question which technology will be in the future become more important, so for instance nanotechnology or biotechnology, but also we ask ourselves how will we organize innovation. So Foresight assumes that we cannot predict the future, that we cannot forecast the future, but that we will see different futures. So that at the end we can shape the future. So one slogan is the best way to predict the future is to shape the future. So from this perspective we have conducted this study, and this is just more or less our work plan. So you see also how we conducted this project. So we started to identify so-called emerging signals. So we identified examples how worldwide organizations, individuals, societies are doing innovation. We condensed it then in so-called scripts, and then during the project we also asked ourselves what are the economic, social, environmental consequences. So we try to assess these different types of innovation patterns. So this was our main project, and I would say this was one of the first outputs. So after a 2 months process where we scanned magazines, newspapers for new types of innovation. So we really looked how is innovation organized in a new way. And so we identified 68 examples how innovation is done today across the globe. So for instance, we identified, so these are just a few pictures, we also visualized them. So for instance, what we identified is a so-called trend in crowdsourcing. So crowdsourcing means that you offer, or that you're doing, you say, I have a problem, you post it on the internet, you have some prize money, and then the community solves the problem and gets some money, prize money. So this is crowdsourcing, and we observed a lot of these examples. So crowdsourcing, not only companies but also public organizations, even the White House, they use this type of crowdsourcing. So a lot of examples that organizations are opening up the innovation process, so that it's not any longer a closed process, so that anywhere the technicians and engineers are in the cellar, for instance, or in a very close laboratory, but they open up the innovation process. So what's traditionally, or what now is called open innovation. A few other trends. So for instance, we observed this, that organizations developed some or organized some camps. So in a camp, for a few days, on a castle for instance, or in a nice hotel, you lock a few people, young students, like this group. So let's assume we have now all the task to innovate. We have different gender, different age, and we should innovate until tomorrow in a specific area. So in a very close and dense fashion, we innovate over the weekend. So these are so-called innovation camps. And we observe that around the globe, more and more either public organizations or firms are organizing such innovation camps or boot camps. So it's in a very interactive way. People try to collaborate to solve commonly a problem. So this was innovation camp. We had other innovation, for instance, save our energy. So of course a lot of innovation concerning the environmental aspects. I will not talk about all of these aspects, but some cases from India, for instance, Tata Nano, some days people, or nowadays a lot of people say, okay, these low-cost cars are not very innovative, but if you look very carefully also to products which are developed in India or in other BRICS countries, you will observe also that they are very innovative. So a lot of different types of what we call examples or weak signals of change, we have collected them, and in the next stage we have tried to cluster them, to synthesize them, these different type of examples. So by using three principles, the one was a transfer, so let's assume you transfer an idea which happens in one industry or in one specific case to another industry, to another case. This was the principle of transfer. We used the principle of generalization. So think about, you generalize this idea, for instance, this crowdsourcing, think about that not only different industries are using it, but generally every organization uses this crowdsourcing trend and verticalization. So we brought it more to an extreme, so we were a little bit more provocative. So these were the principles. We also tried to pick out these different types of weak signals and try to look forward in the future. How could look a future, this which not necessarily have to become true, but which also to some extent should provoke. And this is then more or less one of the main outcomes of this Innovation Futures project. So we condensed and we developed so-called 20 innovation visions. So how economy, how business, how society may innovate in the future. So this is, if you so like, main trends, main innovation trends, how we will innovate. And already were we identified that some companies in Austria, in Germany, around the globe, to the States, etc., China, how they how already some organizations, companies are innovating, and probably this may become a main trend. So, for instance, we define something like innovation on request. So, companies are innovating by involving a lot of customers, and the customers are saying what they want to have and are innovating even by themselves. So this was the innovation, the innovation on request vision. We had this example, what I told you, these innovation camps. We asked ourselves, what if people innovated together in proper places? So this was this vision. I told you that a lot more organizations are collecting different type of people together, customers and so on, to innovate. We had other visions like create it yourself. So you know that there's the tendency that also we have technologies that people can innovate and develop their own products. So for instance, you may know that what is now very fashionable are 3D printers, where you can print at home, not only a small components and products made of plastic, so three-dimensional pictures. And so, yeah, pictures is an object. So the idea is that probably also more and more people will also use these technologies to develop their own products, and not only to develop them, but also to manufacture them. Some people say also we are now going towards the maker economy. So a lot of new trends we observed, and you see already this is also probably a challenge for a company. What should I choose? So there are probably also so many opportunities. What is probably the best way? Which of these innovation strategies has a particular potential for my industry? Because this depends also, of course, whether you, for instance, in the B2C market or whether you are in a B2B business. So this was created yourself. My personal favorite was no innovation. I mean, of course, as innovation researchers, you deal a lot of, not so many were really surprising for us, because here or Daniel already heard about it. But what we really, or what I personally was for me really astonishing was this: there's probably also a trend towards doing less innovation, because some type of innovation fatigue. So we are tired of having always the new products and always innovating, like the rat in the cycle. So probably also there's some trends that in some industries also a company will probably do less innovation in the future. So this was also an innovation. And of course also what I told you, waste-based innovation, for instance, this was also this idea of cradle to cradle. So there's also the tendency that we will have going more towards sustainable development. So you see these 20 different types of innovation visions, they offer a very huge opportunity. And we see all these different types of innovations which already are practices, let's say, by very innovative companies, organizations, citizens. And what we have also done, and that's what I like to show you, we have also prepared a small video, about 10 minutes, which a bit also will summarize now the process of weak signal scanning, and also very quickly again will present some of these innovation visions. So I will show you now, I hope it works, this video.
Tāds 71. konferences dalībnieki. Kā jūs jau šeit acīm redzot sagaidat, mūsu sekcijā mēs esam nolēmuši runāt par
for new working environments. Venlo, a city in the Netherlands, and its 90,000 inhabitants adopted the concept of cradle to cradle as a vision for the development of their city. More and more of the nomadic knowledge workers from the creative class join co-working spaces. What if these signals gain strength, spread from a few pioneers to many people, and become widespread practice? Here are some projections from the INFU Consortium. Open source aside, what if open source development is no longer limited to software development, but becomes an all-encompassing innovation pattern? Many products and services are provided by people contributing bits and pieces to various technological and social innovation projects. Open source business models and coordination mechanisms abound. Virtual-only innovation. What if many innovations were enjoyed only virtually? Virtual-only products satisfy human appetite for newness. They're displayed in virtual galleries for public perception and enjoyed as ideas. Most of these products are never materialized. Negotiation. What if innovation becomes publicly negotiated? Companies advertise innovation proposals to citizens, competing for approval of new product developments. Innovation on request. What if companies generated most innovations by special request from user communities? Together with sociologists, designers, and developers, communities of users develop innovation scenarios and sell them to companies. Public experimentation system. What if experimentation that aligned social and technological innovation were considered the key ability of successful innovation systems? Public authorities strive to foster a permanent stage of collective experimentation through a loosely connected network of local bottom-up projects. Enablers for collective experimentation, such as innovation toolkits, form the critical infrastructure for experimentation systems. No innovation. What if innovation fatigue takes over and no innovation is in vogue? The innovation rush is finally slowing down. Product cycles are becoming longer again. For market success, unchanging quality is more important than new offers. InnoCamp society. What if innovation camps, where people gather for a few days to innovate together, becomes widely established as a means of problem solving? Innovation camps are used by companies, public sector, and civil societies to solve problems from high-tech challenges to neighborhood facilities. Most people do regularly join innovation camps. 90% innovation. What if innovation is primarily directed at the other 90% of the world population living in poverty? Extreme low-cost, high innovation strategies prevail. Western companies struggle as they lack the competence and culture required. Innovators from today's emerging markets do much better due to their long-standing experience. CIY, create it yourself. What if fabrication laboratories for everybody with flexible manufacturing equipment becomes widely available and allows people to produce ever more products themselves? Self-production of personalized objects is the standard way of producing commodities directly at your home or in create-it-yourself shops or malls, with optional professional support. Companies just deliver materials, components, equipment, and design tools. Innovation imperative. What if the current emphasis on innovation and creativity for designers, programmers, and engineers spreads to all workplaces? All employees from the janitor to top management are constantly involved in innovation activities. Creativity is part of any job's daily routine and is key in performance measurement. Part of the job is to redefine the job itself. Innovation marketplace. What if companies no longer innovate themselves, but fully externalize innovation to an open innovation marketplace? Nomadic innovators bid on innovation tenders and contests in constantly changing teams. They gather in co-working spaces, some of which are the top employers for creative people. Innovation campus. What if companies collaborate in joint innovation places? Independent innovation plants rent large open spaces for companies to settle their innovation staff with private areas and all sorts of collaborative facilities. Darwin's innovation. What if companies use digital systems to randomly create and test innovation variants before selecting the fittest for further development? Enormous amounts of variants are tested, often with an unexpected outcome. Design, creativity, and consumer research lose relevance. Engineers dream of ultimately stimulating the end user and thus fully automating the innovation process. Web-extracted innovation. What if we scan the internet for ideas and automatically pick the ones that best answer current customer needs? Sophisticated semantic web filters track changes in consumer preferences and new ideas in real time and automatically extract innovations with outstanding market potential. Innovation meets education. What if innovation skills were high on the education agenda right from kindergarten? Children are motivated to maintain their discovery spirits and learn how to question facts and think things differently. Learning is project-oriented with a high emphasis on do-it-yourself. Relocated innovation. What if the bulk of successful and disruptive innovations were to come from today's emerging markets? The West adopts the role of a follower and has to face products primarily designed for a different cultural context. Western companies wishfully look to Asia, often with the help of industrial espionage. Creative people migrate to the new innovation hotspots in Asia and send back their money home to the US and Europe. Waste-based innovation. What if the principle of waste equals food, cradle to cradle, is widely adopted? Instead of raw material, databases with used components and materials serve as a starting point for innovations. The whole world becomes one eternal circle. Everything that is made of something is part of making something. Laboratory stores. What if stores were to become laboratories where companies and customers co-develop innovations? Laboratory department stores would offer theme worlds, such as family life or new sports, where customers can experience unreleased products, individualize existing goods, and in return, get access to products better fitting their needs and desires. City-driven system innovation. What if cities become stronger actors in the field of innovation by proactively pushing for needed solutions? Cities take an active role for the development and implementation of systemic sustainability innovations and offer their solutions to other cities.
So by also visualizing these innovations, we tried to communicate, to give also some provocative questions, also to pose to policymakers. This was of course also an interesting question for the European Commission, which wants to foster innovation and nowadays of course invests a lot in R&D, but also probably in this already on the way to also refine their understanding of innovation, but it also offers a lot of opportunities and for companies, for instance, for smaller, large organizations, but also for public organizations to innovate. So these were these 20 innovation visions. I will now pick out only a few ones and to probably to discuss it a bit more with you. So I think we labeled them innovation visions, but in some industries they are already real and happen a lot and are diffused a lot. So this one is this innovation on request. Nowadays, or for more than probably 5 to 10 years, this is also called user innovation. So user communities, for instance, in the internet, or your customers are innovating based on their specific demands. So together communities of users are developing, and I think this has also a huge potential for a lot of industries and a lot of companies. For instance, if you take a large company like Unilever, they are more and more using such methods to develop new products for their customers, for their markets. So I think this was really a main trend. Another one to remember and to repeat is this trend towards create it yourself. I told you already there are new technologies available where citizens, customers can increasingly develop their own products by any type of kits by 3D printers and so on. So this was the idea was that self-production of personalized objects is the standard way of producing commodities, which for instance has of course a lot of new challenges for traditional companies, how to respond to such a transformation, probably even of the whole industry. So, and the other one, open source society, if we think about a bit more, we can even say that we use this principle of open source so that the community, the open source software developing community where software code is shared between the community, that you use this principle not only for software development but also for other type of products. And if you remember, probably we found a few examples, and one of these was the so-called Oscar car, this open source car, where there are really now the ideas that also a community develops a new car. So where a community jointly also interacts over the internet to develop a new car. So this was a pilot project and still an ongoing project in the UK, where they try to innovate, and we speculated probably we will end up one day with an open source society. So a lot of innovations, a lot of ideas are freely shared. Of course provocative, but if you see a lot of industry, this happens already to some extent. Web extracted innovation. So what we found, so I've told you that we have conducted this project, it was finalized 1.5 years ago. So we had this idea that probably one day an organization or a software company will scan the internet for ideas and pick out. So a lot of people are, for instance, complaining in the internet about their products, what they don't like. So think about that this intelligent software is looking for complaints in the internet and picks out the ideas and then makes a suggestion for new products. And indeed, what I found last year is that already really a company now in the meantime exists which has developed such a software. So you see, whatever you post in the internet, you always have to think if it is really a bright idea, someone else can take it, at least if it's anonymous, and probably make money out of your idea. So these are all very new ideas and opportunities which emerged mainly due to the new web tools, to the internet and so on, which has of course a lot of also then consequences for regulation, for intellectual property rights, for standardization. So these are also then issues we have discussed, for instance, with the policymakers. So I think also very fascinating new innovation trend, web extracted, or later on we call them also automatized innovation. So at the end, in the future, we will see that more and more algorithms and machines will develop, will be creative. So as you know, in the financial markets, softwares are very often taking the decision when and where to invest, and probably also in the future more and more software technologies are used to develop, to test new ideas, new product development concepts. So this is really a main trend. Innovation camp, I already told you that a lot of innovation camps are organized. I'm not sure whether you have also organized such innovation camps in Riga or Latvia. Anybody knows about one? We have over a weekend or over a week, you cooperate. Anyone idea? I know, for instance, that the Aalto University of Helsinki also organized such a camp with a lot of different students. Garage, yes. So these are these friends to collect together a lot of people and you really use the creative potential of all of us. So everyone can contribute to the innovation process. So this is really a main trend. So whenever you have an idea or have the opportunities, why not organizing such an innovation camp here also in Riga? Develop and test ideas, develop even prototypes. And even then we can make here a Paul who thinks that what are the potentials of such a new product or idea. So these are the innovation camps. So we have a lot of innovation on the local level, other hand, we also observed we have innovation on the global level. And you know there's of course this increasing competition which everybody nowadays fears, China, India. And of course and there's a lot of debate whether Chinese and Indian companies can be one day as innovative as the traditional Europeans or even US ones. What do you think? Will they be able to really not only to copy and paste, but also to develop new innovative products? So for instance, we have this nice term, creative people migrate to the new innovation hotspots in Asia and send back their money home to the US and Europe. Bit of a provocation, but you know that all these countries, or some of them, are investing a lot in at least in R&D, and probably the next step is then to transform the R&D results in innovation. And it was very interesting that when we finalized the project, we have also this web page, innovation-futures.org, and I received then an email from a China's partner whether it's possible, or he have applied for the web page innovation-future.cn. So he asked me whether we also have protected it. I said no problem. So you see, Chinese companies and a lot of other countries trying to become also more innovative. So the competition will of course also increase in the future, which of course also, what does this mean again for policymakers on the European level, on the national level? What does this mean for companies? Should you go to these countries? Should you develop also there, or should you still develop in Europe or in Latvia? So these are questions which are related to these innovation visions. Another one, when we talk now, I have the perspective on the global level, is what is usually also called the bottom of the pyramid innovations. So what is the bottom of the pyramid? So these are those countries who have very less income. So poorer countries, emerging countries, so Africa and so on. And we see that we label this 90% innovation, so producing innovations for the other 90%. But these are at the same time offers a huge market potential, and also requires probably a new innovation process. A lot of organizations have failed with their strategy to develop in, let's say, Europe or in the US, a product for the Indian market or for the African market. You have to develop such products in those countries. And this is usually very, let's say, very difficult, because we like a lot of technical features. We over-engineer sometimes our products, and such projects have to be very simple, where you focus really on the main, most important features, product features. So for instance, we had a manufacturer in Austria who developed a track, very specific for the specific demands of Africa. So which at the end is very cheap, but which requires a lot of new capabilities in designing products. Or if you develop a product in a computer for such countries. So these are all what is also sometimes called frugal innovation, so very focused and reduced innovation. And this offers, of course, a lot of potential to develop new products. Probably you have a less premium, you earn less per product, but of course you sell much more products. So another trend we observed, very interesting. And again, why we have adopted it, it requires also a new way how we organize the whole innovation and development process. So as I said, we cannot develop here. You have to go in these countries to understand the market needs. And the last one, so we had this, you could say the first one, the first innovation visions I talked to you were more all of this related to opening up the innovation process, something Chester have defined as open innovation. Then we have a lot of innovation patterns and forms related to this globalization. And the last one I think was of course also a main trend, is this trend towards sustainability. customers, citizens demand that they have more, let's say, greener, more ecologically, more sustainable products, which very often are not provided by the companies. So people and customers, citizens are not satisfied with the standard solutions, so they start to innovate by themselves. For instance, to develop more energy efficient buildings, to use new energy saving technologies when you build your own house, and so on. So this was, and one trend or one very specific concept is the so-called cradle to cradle. So you use every material you use during developing and producing a product, you use it once again. So everything, when you, let's say, when you have the end of your life cycle of the product, you use all components again. So everything, every material and components leave in the circle, in the resource flow. So this is the concept from cradle to cradle, which also was suggested by Brownhart, and there's, for instance, one city in the Netherlands who tries to adopt this idea of cradle to cradle. So at the end they produce no waste. Every waste is used again for product development, and this offers, of course, also new opportunities for companies. So you see that opportunities are huge. And as I said, these are not only all visions, but at least some companies in some countries, in some industries are using these models. And the question is, what is the potential of all these different types of strategies? So probably I will skip this. We can also then assess these visions, what we have also done. So we had an online survey. So what was the likelihood and what was the desirability? Some people like some visions and hope that they become true, but of course there's also some probability. So what most people, or what a lot of people, of course these 60 were mainly Europeans, but what they disliked is that we see that we have more competition on the global scale. So this is the lower desirability, but of course the likelihood was assessed as higher. Most people say, okay, innovation campus, innovation request to take out too, they think this has a higher likelihood and also a higher desirability. So this will probably become also a main trend in the future. The same holds for all these sustainability related waste-based innovation trends. And no innovation nobody likes, and most people also don't think that we will see less innovation in the future, apart, for instance, except for some specific industries. So we developed these visions and then we discussed it and assessed them. So this was then also the final part of the project. How should we assess all these different strategies and trajectories? Which one is the best? And at the end we observed it's really very difficult, because every innovation trend has chances, opportunities, but also offers some risks. So not all of these innovation patterns are necessarily more green and more sustainable. So if you think that everybody starts at home to produce its own products, people will even produce more and more, probably in a less efficient way. So producing small number of units is probably less economically, and you probably even produce more waste. On the other hand, if you really generate these very sustainable solutions, it's very often to make them also to produce global products. So really also to have a growth of a new product, because then there's the danger that you have very isolated solutions for sustainability problems. So we discussed all of these visions, and at the end, what we separated or what we created are so-called 6 dimensions of change. So we say these are the main characteristics of these innovations, and associated risks, consequences, and opportunities. So to summarize, the first lesson of what we really observe is we observed a lot of new forms of coordination and of participation. So we will see in the future more and more networking in the innovation process. A lot of different type of actors around the company, but not necessarily only within for companies, but also communities. So they are gaining importance. And particularly citizens and customers are more and more involved in the innovation process. So they raise their hand and say, okay, I want to have this very specific product, I want to be involved in the product development process, or even start to innovate by themselves. However, as I said, what could be a risk of too much participation? If everyone votes for innovations, probably there's less probability to generate really a radical breakthrough innovation. Because then probably you have more these consensual solutions or lukewarm solutions. So if you really want to make a breakthrough innovation, probably it's not always really realized by a community, probably rather by fancy individuals. And so this means also for organizations, of course, more and more also to develop govern networks. So when they are offering such a competition on the net, and there's a network of users, how to govern such a process, how to make sure that also your company that you still have a competitive advantage. So this is for sure very important. A second one, what we have observed is that we see a change in motivation of innovation. So we observe that usually also, as Schumpeter has said, or traditional economists would say, companies are innovating, of course, also because of the competition, and of course also to gain profits and to grow. What we observe particularly in these user communities, in these public communities, that there is of course much more, that they want to solve societal problems, that they want to solve social problems, that they want to make products, develop products more greener. So this is what usually or very often is also called social innovation or social entrepreneurship. So we will see both. We will see on the one hand innovation which is triggered, motivated by the traditional economic profit making. On the other hand, we will see more and more innovation which really should address the social problems, should really address and solve our daily problems, and not probably generate even more waste, more pollution and whatsoever. And so this is of course also some tension in the innovation management and policy process. So in which direction should we go? On the one hand, just innovation for innovation's sake and just for making profit, or innovation really to solve problems. And for instance, one way to make a solution is that some companies have adopted or developed new hybrid business model, so-called, for instance, 3P business models. So 3P means for the planet, for people, and for profit. So we need business models and have to develop products which not only are economically feasible, but also have a greener footprint. So very particularly, this is, if you so like, a specific form of this motivation is what I already told you, this eco-innovation. And as you know, or most of you, the European Commission defined therefore also this term of grand challenges. So in this, the aim is also that R&D and innovation should be fostered, promoted also from the public side to address the grand challenges of our society. So innovation really to meet and address the social and ecological problems. And again, as I told you, the challenge is that a lot of these initiatives are starting up, are more grassroots initiatives, are starting on the bottom level. So for instance, here in this might be very interesting case in Riga, but at the end you need then someone who also adopts, transfer these ideas to other cities. So you need at the end, you need also some type of organization, of governance. And this is to some extent also the weakness of these projects or of these innovation models. The fourth trend or fourth dimension of change is that we will for sure see more adoption and use of software technology and what we have labeled automatization of innovation. So we can't escape, and therefore we need, at the other hand, we need regulation. We need data security. If you think about what is this, all this Economics and Googles and all these other companies who are using also a lot of this information, what does it really mean also for instance, for data security, for personal protection, but also probably in the future will we become more dependent on software algorithms who are developing for us, and we are very dependent then. So this is another topic which probably should also raise some question and require some answers. We will for sure have also a broader understanding of innovation. So innovation is much more as a technical product. We have technical, organizational, social innovations, and what we observe in the last 5 to 10 years is that we have more and more social innovations and public innovations. And this will go on and move on in the future also. So we are probably, some colleagues are also talking about, we are living in an innovation society, in an entrepreneurial society. So this is very important. And the final one, was this regional shift. So this was the sixth dimension of change, or sixth main trend. We will see innovation both on the local level, but also on the global level. So we have a lot of opportunities on the city level, on the regional level, but on the same hand, opportunities, but also probably risks. So, for instance, if a company from Latvia says they are moving their R&D department to China, of course, usually policymakers here in Latvia, the same as in Austria and Europe, are not very happy about such a decision. But yeah, on the long term probably it's probably necessary. So these are questions related to this globalization of innovation. How should we cope with such development trends? That other regions, other nations are becoming more innovative, and that also European companies, and this is also what we discussed of course with the European Commission, are transferring their R&D to Asia, Brasilia, whatsoever. Should you foster it? Should it be sad, or is it even on the long term a good decision? So we can think now, what does this mean for management, for policy, and for academia? So this is just a snapshot. If you think about all of these innovation models, innovation strategies, what does it mean for the management of innovation? So that's what you probably also, some of in the papers are discussed in the next days here at this conference on business and economics, but what does it mean for business strategy? On the one hand, what is really a challenge is to select and focus nevertheless your innovation strategy. You could not be good at all at the same time. You could not ride several horses at the same time. So adopting such a strategy or such an innovation model nevertheless needs a very specific and also carefully designed alignment with your business strategy. You need probably a new business model. So if you share your knowledge, or if you adopt such an open source software development strategy, you need at the same time a new business model to make money. So there is of course now a tendency that this is a lot of these innovation trends are very high, and now every company starts up to open its innovation process to adopt such a strategy without carefully thinking what could be also possible negative outcomes. Secondly, innovation strategy very often needs more and more the organization, the governance of a self-organized network. So probably big companies are not those who have big R&D labs, who are developing the product, but innovative companies are those who are using a lot of communities, a lot of customers, pick out their ideas, transform it into products, and coordinate, if you so like, the whole network. Which is, of course, a huge, also a challenge for companies which are used to control on a hierarchical level the whole organization. So the boundaries of the organizations are much more blurred, get more open, more fussy. So this is, I think, from the management, also from the culture of management, very difficult for traditional, for instance, R&D innovation manager. And I still think that nevertheless a company has to develop very carefully its core competencies. Of course, you can think about if we all share our knowledge, if we all cooperate, if we are all networking, we don't need any core competencies any longer. Some people are saying this, but I think that still to define what is your secret, what is your recipe, which probably no one else knows, this is still very important. Otherwise your business ideas get too quick copied and imitated. So you still need something which is your unique business strategy, which cannot be imitated by your competitors. So these are, I think, three main challenges for managers, and the 5 challenges for policymakers are that also policy is much more than promoting R&D investments, and this is also a very cultural change. You for sure have also here in Latvia a R&D promotion fund, and of course usually you fund hard rock science technical products, but much more and more in order to all these new types of innovations towards social innovation, organization innovations. So we have also to promote this type of innovations, and probably even those which are more important for the business competitiveness and for the growth for the long term. So therefore policy has to broaden its understanding on innovation, and also broaden its understanding, and also to involve and allow participation of very different actors. And if you think about, for instance, at the moment in the Horizon 2020, European promotion of R&D projects, there's more and more also possibilities of participation, not only of R&D players, but also, for instance, of users, of citizens, and so on. Policy, I think, should really shape the direction of development, so there's really this need, and citizens, users want to have more these sustainable solutions, and I think this is also already adopted. And therefore also policy needs a more integrated perspective. So it's not only the technical problems which have to be solved, where you have the brightest R&D guys, the best natural scientists, but very often these are more the social, organizational perspectives. So the governance of the whole innovation system, which is more difficult to manage. And of course, finally, also, I haven't talked too much about this, but all these new open forms of innovation also raises new questions for the intellectual property rights. So on the one hand, there are still more and more patents applied, but on the other hand, we also observe that other types of protecting knowledge, or for instance like Creative Commons, are more important. And how do you deal with such issues as I have already addressed if you post your ideas in the internet? So who can benefit from such ideas? So a lot of ideas and also new questions. And final one, probably also for the research agenda, probably also to be picked up in already picked up in one of the papers, or in the future, I think we really need a much better understanding of the different economic, social, social, and environmental impacts of all these innovation models. We still don't know how they work and in which conditions they work really well. As I said, this example that if more and more people start to innovate by themselves, to produce and develop more products, is this more sustainable? And how can we still achieve such a sustainable development? So innovation is neither always good nor became more simple nowadays. It's still a very difficult process, and I think so there are so many new opportunities, and we have, of course, already we have started particular concerning open innovation, but there are a lot of other types of innovations where there's still not enough of neither the theoretical nor empirical knowledge. We need also a better understanding how to align the innovation strategy with the business strategy. So whenever I talk also with managers, they say, okay, these are very nice and important, relevant strategies, but which one is the most promising for my company? I'm, for instance, in a business-to-consumer market, or I'm in a B2B market, I'm a small company and a large company. Which one is the most promising idea? Which one should I select? I think there is also some research needed, so where's the highest probability to gain also then at the end an economic benefit? And at the end, we need also another, as this the whole innovation process is more and more open, is more and more distributed, is more and more happening in networks. I think that understanding these innovation networks, who are the key players in such networks, and this also is very interesting question for the research agenda. So these, I think, are the three, from our project perspective, interesting question for our researchers or scientists. So at the end, we all together will develop and shape our development. So companies, we as users, as citizens, and also, of course, policy makers, at the end, will all together innovate in the future and will, at the end, shape our direction. So whenever you have now want to see the trailer once again, download some of the papers. Here is the webpage, also innovation-futures.org. I think we can also provide the slides then later on. And I hope so that at least some of these innovation strategies and examples were also new from you, from your perspective, and I addressed and provoked also a few questions and thinkings whether you can and to what extent probably also you in Latvia could also adopt some of these strategies. So thank you very much.
Thought-provoking talk, and I think you all have many questions. We still have 15 minutes for discussions, and please, I don't know about microphone, I hope that we can hear also without a microphone, please. Yeah, yes, please.
I'm a PhD student in economics. I'm a PhD student in economics, and thank you for your presentation. It was with many new ideas. My question is, how do you understand the difference between innovations and technology? We all heard a lot of different terms, but how is the meanings and difference between them? Thanks.
Innovations are usually defined as the diffusion or translation of a new idea, of a new concept, which is then applied or used within society or by the market. So this could be a technological product, but it could be also a service, another type of solution innovation, I would say, is the more broader sense. In a more broader sense, just means realizing a new idea, finding a new solution, and of course, a lot of innovations are based on new technologies. So then we talk about technological innovations, or what you usually would say that's a product innovation. And in more generic terms, of course, any technology which you think about at the end has become then an innovation. So when you think about technologies we used in our, so technologies are used usually in the technological knowledge within our products and within the innovations. So I would say innovation is more the dynamic perspective, and technology is then more the artifact, what you can touch.
I absolutely like that technologies are the process and innovations are divided in processes and products. And this is the main thing to explain, that technologies is a part of processes which are innovations as well. Professor,
yes, where I come from, we have lots of research which tells us that bachelors are entrepreneurial and innovative, but masters are not. Do you have a comment on that? Should we stop master education?
Where are you from? I know. Oh, I've read it yesterday in the newspaper. At least in other countries, I'm not sure where this distinction is so sharp that bachelors are more innovative than master students. Some people say also that who is really innovative and let's say at least creative, are very small children. And the more you are going through the education system, the more you lose your creativity and innovativeness. And to some extent, yes, you are probably right that the higher probably the education and the higher you are trained to behave in a very specific way and to also to meet the expectations from the environment, the more difficult. This is probably the opposite of being really entrepreneurial innovative. And of course now there's a lot of lectures provided within universities. So we have, for instance, I have lectures for entrepreneurship for technicians. But at the end, it's of course, therefore you would really have to change the whole, probably also system. But still, I think you to some extent you can learn to be more entrepreneurial and also to be more innovative.
This question not to follow up is a big business. To innovate is only a very small business, measured in the number of labor hours.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, this is also related to that you could say that even in society or in economy or business and sector, there's also a balance between what is really innovative and the other thing is, let's say, imitation. And sometimes we always think innovation is good and imitation is bad. But at the end, of course, you could also innovate too much, and you need also time, and society and markets need time to use innovation. So if we permanently have to adapt to new technologies and new solutions and update the software every second week, probably we innovate them already too much. So at the end, I would say yes, to be really innovative is still a very small, very few companies within our industries and so on. But in general, of course, we are now in the society and we see a lot of industries, countries where they innovate more and more. Yeah.
I think that. So thanks a lot for your presentation, and my question would be, like, you told a lot about very interesting innovations and these incentives and so on.
Yeah.
But did your study also looked at failures in innovation? Because, like, from my
Unfortunately not. Would be another research project. We probably should do. I once did a study in Austria about the 50 most successful innovations, and I know also that of course researchers and inventors, it's more difficult also for a researcher to find these cases and people talk about their failures. But I know there are some books and also have some studies which particularly try to learn from failures. And of course you can probably also pick out some of these innovation models and strategy, and also at least if there's a critical mass of application, and also think about what can we learn from failures and what are best practices and what we should not do. So I would say that most of these innovation strategy are to some extent also trial and error. And I think also that companies that just try it, they also very often have no idea whether it works or not. So they see, okay, there's a potential to use the crowd, so let's try it. And usually this also, of course, that's what I say, they need a strategy, but very often they have just a clumsy understanding, and so they try it how it works. Probably in a very specific case, in a specific country. And so I think also this is very often company you see a more incremental strategy. They try such a strategy, how it works, and very often it fails also. Thank you. Question? Do you want to?
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting. I'm Pascal Bouillez from France, and I'm an associate professor. I have a question about your brainstorming in innovation strategy. I would like to know if you made a kind of classification of your innovation strategy, because in my mind it's reflection. But I saw two kind of topics in your brainstorming. One's about process of innovations, as for instance laboratory store or innovation camp, etc. And the second one is about the nature of the product. As for instance, use-based innovations, 90% innovations, and I saw also a third, it's about cradle to cradle. For me, it's much more the link between process of innovations and the nature of the product. And my question will be if you know about the new principle of economy, the move from an economy of ownership to an economy of service functionality. So I would like to know much more about your models, your economic models. You spoke about Schumpeter, but I would like to know if you have also innovated in your economic models.
Probably two answers. To your first question, our starting point was to identify the innovation process models. But what we observed that this very often can't be isolated or dealt independently of the output of the form or nature of innovation. So what we have observed very often that communities, users, companies say, okay, when we want to have more sustainable innovation, more green innovation, or cradle to cradle, we also have to rethink our process. So in order to develop a more sustainable innovation, greener, whatsoever, we need a participatory process. We need a more collective process. We need a more open process. So we started, look for the process, and then very often we observed, okay, this is related to the output, and the same was with this rural innovation. So we had also the same observation during the process, and very often it's very hard to distinct. So cradle to cradle requires also a new model of innovation, how you manage it, how your strategy develop it. So your second part of your question, I would not say that we have really developed a new or applied a specific economic meaning or theory of innovation. What we have, I skipped this slide. We have we have at least tried to characterize it and found, of course, to some extent that the traditional economic explaining of innovation fails in a lot of these innovations. That's the only thing I can say, that a lot of innovations are done not just because of commercial, business, economic perspectives or motivations, but there's much more implicit, informal, non-monetary which motivates people. And this is usually, let's say, not to some extent, but usually in mainstream economics not really addressed. But I think this is, of course, also a research question for new projects, and I know that, for instance, at the moment there are a lot of also large projects, amongst others. We are also involved in such projects about social innovation. So how can we really understand all this phenomena of social innovation, social entrepreneurship? How is this? Why does this happen? And what are the motivations? And I think there's also the same question. Very often you cannot split them so easily. Very often they are also, to some extent, of course, it's socially driven, but at the end, on the other hand, it's also to some extent, of course, at least some economic rationale behind it.
I'm from University of Latvia. You mentioned that the traditional motivation of companies as well as individuals is not to get more profit. It's questionable now that we are more interested in other needs, social needs, ecological needs. You also mentioned this 3P model: people, profit, and planet. As I'm representing academic staff, my interest is connected with university future. So what you can suggest for us how for universities from small and emerging markets to be successful in this changing environment and to collaborate with leading universities and not to get lost.
Difficult question now. Yeah, I mean, we have done also another project about the future of universities, and what we discussed now, innovation also is particularly relevant for universities. When you talk or when you observe today this trend towards on these massive online courses. When you talk about also what is the role of universities, do they providing more services for the industry? So will we see a future where you have a very, let's say, smaller university with a lot of a smaller number of permanent staff and a lot of people you are collaborating with, and which have probably less good opportunities. To give you now a quick advice, I think also that university has, to some extent, have to specialize. Also for, at least we have in Austria also this discussion that you have to specialize also in specific areas. And what I also observe is that particularly in some scientific fields which require a lot of investments, particularly infrastructure, this is more and more difficult for smaller countries to invest in physical sciences or to some extent in medical, pharmaceutical laboratories. So I think for such industry, for such sciences and scientific fields, it's more difficult for smaller countries, and so therefore also I think we have to collaborate. So I think also when we talk about open innovation, about collaboration, I think the same at the end also for university you have to collaborate, and probably also the best is still to image and reputation is still very important for universities. The best is of course to cooperate, to specialize and try to cooperate also with very good universities. But probably we can discuss this later on. Probably you have to see seemed a bit longer to answer such a question. But just wanted really came to tell you that we have also performed a project which is called Research and Innovation Futures 2030, where we exactly also it was funded by the Commission. Also, what are the challenges for university research? So, yeah. So you.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. I'm Xiao Songzhen from Tallinn University of Technology. Originally, I'm from China, so I can first reply you. I think in your talk you mentioned that, for example, in China, some Chinese companies are they doing innovation. It's quite interesting because in China we have very many companies. They are only. Maybe we can use the word copy. Copy is a business model of foreign countries. For example, you guys can use Facebook. Here in China, Facebook is forbidden. But we have a Chinese company, we have a Chinese version, it's called Renren. The functions are quite similar to Facebook. So, and in America they have eBay. In China we have Taobao. Exactly, it's quite similar functions. So the question is are these Chinese companies doing innovation or are they just simply copy? And I want to give my answer. It's not just my answer. There are some arguments in our newspaper, but the Chinese newspapers say that yes, at least there are some innovations because for innovation you have to take into account the culture, social factors. You have to modify some features at least at some level. It's quite interesting. I was thinking if I just need to modify a little bit Western business models, maybe it will work in China. But the question is this really a good innovation? So my question is, I found that many commercial companies, they do not want to have cooperation with universities or research institutions because for a good innovation, I suppose networking, partnership is very important. But what about the situation in Austria? Do the government encourage, do they have specific policies to encourage university and company cooperation? Because some of them don't want to cooperate. Thank you.
The last question is very easy to answer. We have very specific programs. For instance, we have